The city pulsed with life, bathed in the glow of flickering neon signs. Distant sirens wailed in the background, merging with a steady hum of late-night traffic. It wasn't the worst neighborhood, but it certainly wasn't the best either. It existed in that uneasy in-between. Jordan Miles, a 36-year-old black man, walked along the dimly lit sidewalk, his breath forming pale clouds in the crisp night air. Another exhausting day at work was finally behind him, and now, all he wanted was to get home. His suit jacket hung over his shoulder, his tie slightly loosened, and with every step, his polished shoes tapped softly against the pavement. He moved at a relaxed pace. No reason to rush, nothing to hide. But just as he reached the next block, the sharp glare of headlights cut through the darkness, making him squint. Then, out of nowhere, a police siren ripped through the quiet night. Jordan's heart clenched as a squad car pulled up beside him, its red and blue lights flashing wildly, casting eerie shadows against the old brick buildings. The car door swung open, and out stepped a white police officer, Officer Reynolds. He adjusted his belt with one hand, the other resting almost too comfortably on the holstered weapon at his hip. "Hey, you." His voice was firm, sharp, commanding. "What are you doing out here?" Jordan let out a slow breath, steadying himself. He knew the script. He had seen it play out before. "Just heading home, officer," he said, keeping his tone calm measured. "Is there a problem?" Reynolds took a step closer, his eyes sweeping over Jordan's suit and polished shoes, his expression flickering with something unreadable. Suspicion? Disbelief? As if a black man dressed like this, walking these streets, was an anomaly. "We've had reports of a suspicious person in the area," Reynolds said flatly. "And you matched the description." Jordan felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. A black man in a suit, simply walking home. That was suspicious now? He met the officer's gaze, unwavering. "I don't believe I do," Jordan replied, voice steady. "But I can show you my ID." Reynolds let out a scoff, his lip curling ever so slightly. "Turn around and put your hands where I can see them." A lump formed in Jordan's throat. He had seen where this kind of moment could lead. He had read the headlines. He had mourned the names. But he didn't argue. He didn't resist. He simply obeyed, because survival often came at the cost of dignity. As he turned, Reynolds moved in, his hands rough, searching, pressing, patting down Jordan's pockets with unnecessary force. Jordan clenched his jaw, but remained silent. Nearby, another officer, Officer Daniels, stood by the patrol car, arms crossed, watching but saying nothing. Then, Reynolds pulled Jordan's wallet from his pocket and flipped it open. Everything changed in an instant. Reynolds' face drained of color. His grip on the wallet tightened. His breathing grew uneven. He swallowed hard. "Wait a second," he muttered under his breath. Jordan turned, his expression unreadable, calm, but only just. "Something wrong, officer?" Reynolds' eyes darted between the ID in his hand and Jordan's face, disbelief creeping into his features. He blinked, stared, blinked again. "Judge Jordan Miles. Federal judge." The silence stretched, thick, suffocating. Reynolds swallowed again, his hands trembling slightly. This wasn't just a black man in a suit. This was a federal judge. A man who upheld the law, signed warrants, and had the power to change lives, to shape justice itself. From the corner of his eye, Daniels leaned in, catching a glimpse of the ID. His eyes widened. "Oh, SH." Reynolds stiffened, straightening up so quickly it looked unnatural. The tension in his face shifted from authority to something else entirely. Fear. "Sir, I apologize for the misunderstanding," Reynolds stammered, voice unsteady. "We were just being cautious." Jordan folded his arms, tilting his head slightly. "Cautious." Reynolds cleared his throat. "Why, standard procedure." Jordan took a deliberate step forward, his voice cool but razor-sharp. "No, Officer Reynolds. I don't think this was standard procedure." Reynolds had no response. He just stood there, suddenly smaller under the weight of his own actions. Jordan reached out, taking his wallet back, sliding it into his pocket. He could have let this go, could have walked away, but he didn't. He met Reynolds' eyes and asked, "Tell me something, officer, if I looked different, would you have stopped me?" Reynolds opened his mouth, then shut it. No words came. "Would you have patted me down? Treated me like a suspect?" Daniels shifted uncomfortably. The answer hung in the air, unspoken but loud as a gunshot. Jordan sighed, the weight of it all pressing down. "You see, officer, there's a difference between you and me." Reynolds' Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. "You saw me and assumed I was a threat. I saw you and assumed you were just doing your job." Reynolds' face burned red. He had no defense, no excuse, no escape from the truth. Daniels, perhaps sensing the moment slipping further out of control, took a hesitant step forward. "Judge Miles, I truly apologize. This should not have happened." Jordan gave him a slow, knowing nod.
"No.
"It shouldn't have." Then he turned back to Reynolds one last time. "But I hope you remember this moment, the next time you decide someone looks suspicious." Reynolds had never felt so exposed in his life. Jordan exhaled, adjusted his tie, and turned on his heel. No handcuffs, no violence, no shouting, just a lesson. And as Jordan disappeared into the night, Reynolds and Daniels stood frozen in place, watching, thinking, reckoning with the weight of their choices.